The first thing Sophia Walsh noticed about the man in the wrinkled suit wasn't his distracted expression or the dark circles under his eyes, but rather the way he seemed completely unaware of the chaotic morning rush happening around him at Brew and Bean. "Next customer, please," she called out, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. The line was already spilling out the door and her coworker had called in sick again. Just another Monday at Manhattan's busiest independent coffee shop. The man approached the counter, still squinting at his phone. "Coffee, large, black. Name for the order?" Sophia asked, marker poised over a cup. He barely looked up. "York." Sophia scribbled the name and passed the cup to the barista. "That'll be $4.50. The man, York, handed her a $10 bill, then immediately turned back to his phone, typing furiously. Sophia placed his change on the counter, but he was already walking away. She shrugged and dropped the money in the tip jar. 10 minutes later, Sophia called out, "Large black coffee for York." No response. She called again, louder this time. "York, large black coffee." A different man approached. "Thanks," he said, reaching for the cup. "Wait, you're York?" she asked, pulling the cup back slightly. "Yes," he replied, looking confused. "York Bennett." Sophia glanced around the crowded shop. But someone else ordered. She stopped as she spotted the first York, not York, leaning against the wall, scowling at his phone. She quickly made another large black coffee and approached him. "Excuse me," she said. "I think there was a mix-up with your order." The man looked up from his phone, his expression shifting from irritation to confusion. His eyes, Sophia noticed, were a striking shade of blue against his olive skin. "You ordered a large black coffee, but someone else named York claimed it. I made you a fresh one." He stared at her for a moment. "I'm Yates Bowman. Did I say York? I must be more sleep-deprived than I thought." "It happens," Sophia said, offering a smile, "especially on Monday mornings. Thanks for tracking me down." He took the cup, his fingers briefly brushing against hers. "You didn't have to do that." "It's part of the job," she replied, "making sure the right coffee finds the right person." Yates took a sip and let out a small, appreciative sigh. "This is exactly what I needed. It's been a hell of a morning. Glad I could help." She turned to leave, but he spoke again. "You know, this is the first genuine interaction I've had all day. Thank you for that, too." Sophia felt her cheeks warm. "You're welcome, Yates, not York. Hope your day improves." As she walked back to the counter, she couldn't help glancing back. He was watching her, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. For a brief moment, their eyes met and something fluttered in her chest. Then a customer called out for assistance, breaking the spell. By the time she looked again, he was gone. The following morning, Sophia was refilling the sugar canisters when she heard a familiar voice. "Large black coffee for Yates Bowman. Definitely Yates, not York." She turned to find him standing at the counter, looking much more put together than he had the previous day. His dark suit was impeccably pressed, his black hair neatly styled, and the shadows under his eyes had diminished. "Good morning," she said, approaching the register. "I see you've recovered from your Monday haze." "Mostly," he replied with a small smile, "though I still need the coffee." As she rang up his order, she noticed him studying her name tag. "Sophia," he read, "it suits you?" "Thanks. My mom was obsessed with Sophia Loren." She handed him his change. "So what do you do that requires such caffeine dedication, Yates?" A flicker of hesitation crossed his face. "I run a company, nothing exciting." "That sounds like the definition of exciting to me. What kind of company?" Before he could answer, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. "I'm sorry, I have to take this." He stepped away, already speaking in a low, authoritative tone. Sophia watched him for a moment, then returned to her work. When his coffee was ready, he was still on the call, pacing near the window. She brought it to him. "Your fuel, sir," she said quietly. He covered the phone's microphone. "Thank you, Sophia, I appreciate it." There was genuine warmth in his eyes that made her heartbeat quicken. "Anytime," she replied, then returned to the counter, feeling his gaze follow her. Yates became a regular over the next 2 weeks, always arriving at 7:45 a.m., always ordering the same thing. Sometimes they'd chat for a few minutes, about the weather or a book Sophia was reading or the strange customers who frequented the shop. Other times, He'd be pulled into work calls before they could exchange more than pleasantries. She learned he was 32, just 4 years older than she was. He had a sister named Natalie who lived in Boston. He hated cilantro and loved old noir films. He'd never mentioned what company he ran, and Sophia hadn't pressed. She enjoyed their morning interactions too much to risk making them awkward. On a rainy Thursday, Yates arrived looking particularly harried. His hair was damp, his tie slightly askew, and he had that distant look she'd come to recognize as his problem-solving face. "Rough morning?" she asked as she prepared his usual order without him having to ask. "You could say that." He ran a hand through his wet hair. "One of our major projects is falling apart and I need to fly to Chicago tonight to salvage it." "That sounds stressful," she said, sliding his coffee across the counter. "Here, on the house today, sounds like you need it." He looked surprised. "You don't have to do that. I want to. Consider it a good luck charm for your trip." Their fingers touched as he took the cup, lingering a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you, Sophia, that means a lot." She felt her cheeks flush. "It's just coffee." "No," he said softly. "It's not just coffee." For a moment, they simply looked at each other, the bustling cafe fading into the background. Then someone cleared their throat behind Yates, and the moment broke. "I should let you get back to work," he said, stepping away from the counter. "I'll be gone for a few days, but I'll see you next week." Sophia nodded, ignoring the strange disappointment she felt. "Good luck in Chicago." As he walked away, she realized how much she'd come to look forward to their brief morning encounters. It was silly, she told herself. He was just a customer who happened to be kind and interesting and had eyes she could get lost in. She groaned quietly. This was not the time to develop a crush on a customer, especially one who ran some mysterious company and probably had women lining up to date him. The next Monday, Sophia found herself watching the door at 7:40, anticipating Yates's arrival. But 7:45 came and went with no sign of him. She told herself not to be disappointed. He was a busy executive, after all. His schedule had probably changed. By Wednesday, she'd almost convinced herself that he'd found another coffee shop closer to his office. Then the bell above the door chimed, and there he was, looking tired but smiling when he spotted her. "Sophia," he said, approaching the counter, "I missed my morning coffee ritual." "We missed your business," she replied professionally, though her racing heart belied her casual tone. "Just my business." His eyes held hers, questioning. Sophia bit her lip. "Maybe not just your business." His smile widened. "Chicago was a disaster. The only thing that got me through it was thinking about coming back to Brew and Bean. For the superior coffee, obviously." "Obviously," he agreed, his expression turning serious. "Sophia, I've been thinking, would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" "Or is that inappropriate since you're always serving me coffee?" The question caught her off guard, even though she'd fantasized about this very scenario. "I don't think it's inappropriate," she said carefully. "I'd like that." Relief washed over his face. "Great, are you free Friday night?" "I am," she replied, trying to contain her excitement. "Perfect, I'll pick you up at 7, if you're comfortable sharing your address." She scribbled her phone number and address on a napkin. "I'm in the East Village." He pocketed the napkin carefully, as if it contained state secrets. "I'm looking forward to it." "Me too," she admitted, feeling a flutter of anticipation for the rest of the day. Sophia couldn't stop smiling. Her coworker, Tina, noticed immediately. "What's got you so cheerful?" she asked during their afternoon lull. "I have a date on Friday," Sophia confessed. "With who?" "Wait, is it the hot suit guy who always comes in for black coffee?" Sophia nodded. "His name is Yates." "Nice. What does he do again?" "He runs some company. He hasn't given me details." Sophia shrugged. "I guess I'll find out on Friday." Tina's eyebrows shot up. "You agreed to go out with a guy without even Googling him. What if he's a serial killer?" "He's not a serial killer," Sophia laughed. "He's just private about his work." Tina hummed skeptically. "Well, text me his full name before the date so I can alert the authorities if you go missing." "You're ridiculous," Sophia said, rolling her eyes. "But fine, I'll text you." Friday evening arrived, and Sophia stood in front of her closet, surrounded by discarded outfit options. She finally settled on a simple navy blue dress that hugged her curves without being too formal. She was applying the finishing touches to her makeup when her buzzer rang at exactly 7 p.m. When she opened her apartment door, she was momentarily speechless. Yates stood there in dark jeans and a charcoal button-down that made his blue eyes even more striking. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers. "You look beautiful," he said, his gaze appreciative but respectful. "Thank you," she replied, accepting the flowers. "You clean up pretty well yourself," he laughed. "I hope so. I spend most of my life in suits." As they walked to the restaurant, a cozy Italian place just a few blocks away, Sophia was surprised by how natural it felt to be with him outside the coffee shop context. Their conversation flowed easily, moving from books to movies to childhood stories. Over pasta and wine, she learned he'd grown up in Connecticut, the son of a literature professor and an architect. He'd studied business at Penn and worked his way up in the publishing world before starting his own company 5 years ago. "So that's what you do," she said, twirling spaghetti around her fork. "You're in publishing," he nodded. "Digital media specifically. We develop platforms for interactive e-books and educational content." "That sounds fascinating," she said genuinely. "Why were you so mysterious about it?" Yates took a sip of wine. "In my experience, once people learn I'm a CEO, the dynamic changes. They either see dollar signs or assume I'm some cutthroat businessman who steps on others to get ahead. I wanted you to know me as a person first." Sophia considered this. "I can understand that. Though I probably would have treated your coffee with extra care if I'd known you were important," she teased. "That's exactly what I was trying to avoid," he laughed. "No special treatment, just honest interactions." "Well, for what it's worth, I think you're pretty interesting even without the impressive title," his expression softened. "That means more than you know." As the evening progressed, Sophia found herself increasingly drawn to him. It wasn't just his success or his looks, it was the way he listened intently when she spoke about her own dreams of opening a bookstore cafe someday. The way he asked thoughtful questions, the warmth in his eyes when she made him laugh. After dinner, they walked along the East River, the city lights reflecting on the water. Their hands brushed accidentally, then deliberately until their fingers intertwined. "I've been looking forward to this all week," Yates admitted. "Our morning conversations were becoming the highlight of my days." "Mine too," she confessed, though I kept telling myself it was unprofessional to flirt with a customer. "Were you flirting with me?" he asked, his tone playful. "Weren't you flirting with me?" He stopped walking and turned to face her. "Definitely," he said softly. "From day one, when you tracked me down with that coffee." In the soft glow of the streetlights, with the gentle sound of the river beside them, he leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle at first, then deeper as she responded. When they finally pulled apart, Sophia felt slightly dazed. "I've wanted to do that since I first saw you," he murmured. "I'm glad you waited until I wasn't on the clock," she replied, smiling against his lips before kissing him again. When he walked her back to her apartment, they lingered at her door, reluctant for the evening to end. "When can I see you again?" he asked. "I'm free Sunday," she offered. "Sunday it is." He kissed her once more tenderly. "Good night, Sophia. Good night, Yates." As she closed the door behind her, Sophia leaned against it, smiling like a teenager after her first date. She reached for her phone to text Tina that she was home safe and found 3 missed calls and a series of increasingly frantic texts. "Sophia, I Googled him. Call me now." Confused, she called Tina back. "Finally," Tina exclaimed. "Are you okay? Where have you been?" "On my date. What's wrong?" "What's wrong? Do you have any idea who you're dating?" "Yates Bowman isn't just some guy who runs a company. He's the Yates Bowman, founder and CEO of Immersive Text. The company's valued at like $1 billion. He was featured in Forbes 30 Under 30 a few years ago. How did you not know this?" Sophia sank onto her couch, stunned. "He just said he worked in digital publishing. He never mentioned publishing. Girl, that's like saying Amazon just sells books." Immersive Text is revolutionizing the entire industry. Their stock went public last year and tripled in value. "Oh," Sophia said weakly. "I had no idea. So, how was the date? Was his watch worth more than your annual salary? Did he take you somewhere fancy? Details." "We went to Marcello's around the corner. He was normal, kind, interesting." She paused. I really like him, Tina. Well, there are worse problems than accidentally dating a tech mogul, Tina laughed. Just make sure you get me an employee discount when his company takes over the world. After hanging up, Sophia sat in stunned silence. She grabbed her laptop and typed Yates's name into the search engine. Immediately, dozens of results appeared: interviews, profiles, photos of him at industry events. There he was in Business Insider, discussing the future of digital reading. There he was accepting an innovation award, looking uncomfortable in the spotlight. The articles described him as brilliant, visionary, and notoriously private. One profile mentioned that despite his success, he avoided the social circuit typical of tech entrepreneurs, preferring to focus on his work. Another noted that he'd turned down multiple acquisition offers from tech giants, insisting on maintaining his company's independence and creative direction. The more she read, the more she understood why he'd been reluctant to share details of his work. The Yates she'd come to know over morning coffee wasn't the polished CEO from these articles. He was more authentic, more human. She closed her laptop, feeling conflicted. Should she confront him about it? Would that just confirm his fears that knowing his status would change things between them? Sunday arrived with clear skies and mild temperatures, perfect weather for their planned visit to the Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. Yates picked her up at noon, casual in jeans and a light sweater. As they wandered among the blooming spring flowers, Sophia tried to reconcile the man beside her with the business titan she'd read about online. He seemed completely at ease, pointing out his favorite plants and taking photos when she posed beside a spectacular cherry tree in full bloom. "You're quiet today," he observed as they sat on a bench, sharing a pretzel from a vendor. "Everything okay?" Sophia hesitated, then decided honesty was best. "I Googled you after our date." His expression turned cautious. "Ah, why didn't you tell me the full extent of your company? Immersive text isn't just some small publishing venture." Yates sighed, brushing pretzel crumbs from his hands. "Would it have mattered if I had told you?" "I don't know," she admitted, "but finding out from the internet rather than from you felt strange." He nodded slowly. "That's fair. I apologize for the omission." He turned to face her directly. "The truth is, I've had relationships in the past where my position became the focal point. Women who were more interested in what I could provide than who I actually am. When I met you, I enjoyed being just a guy who needed his morning coffee." "I understand wanting privacy," she said. "But relationships need honesty. If we're going to keep seeing each other, I need to know I'm getting the real Yates, not a sanitized version." "The man you've been getting to know is the real me," he said earnestly, taking her hand. "The CEO part is just my job, not my identity." "But you're right, I should have been more forthcoming." He squeezed her hand gently. "From now on, full transparency, I promise." Sophia studied his face, seeing the sincerity there. "Okay," she said finally. Full transparency. Relief washed over his features. "Thank you," he paused. "So we are still seeing each other." She couldn't help but smile. "I'd like to, unless you have some other dark secret family, criminal past," he laughed. "No secrets, though I do have an unhealthy obsession with reality cooking shows." "That I can live with," she replied, leaning in to kiss him softly. Over the next few months, their relationship deepened. Sophia discovered that despite his wealth and status, Yates lived relatively modestly. His apartment, though spacious by Manhattan standards, was comfortably furnished rather than ostentatious. He worked long hours but always made time for her. They established a routine: weeknight dinners at neighborhood restaurants, weekend explorations of the city, quiet evenings reading together on his couch. 3 months into their relationship, Yates invited Sophia to accompany him to a tech industry gala. His company was receiving an innovation award. It would be their first public appearance together in his professional world. "You don't have to come," he assured her. "These events can be tedious." "I want to support you," she replied. "Besides, I'm curious to see CEO Yates in action." The night of the gala, Sophia felt a flutter of nerves as their car pulled up to the glittering venue. She'd spent far too much on a floor-length emerald gown that Tina had insisted was worth every penny when they'd found it during an emergency shopping expedition. Yates, striking in a tuxedo, must have sensed her anxiety. He squeezed her hand as they walked toward the entrance. "You look absolutely stunning," he whispered. "Everyone in there is going to wonder how I got so lucky." Inside, the ballroom was filled with tech industry luminaries. As they made their way through the crowd, Sophia noticed how people's expressions changed when they spotted Yates' faces lighting up with recognition, hands reaching out to greet him. He introduced her to everyone with obvious pride, his hand resting protectively at the small of her back. "So you're the reason Yates has been smiling in meetings lately," commented an older man who turned out to be one of his investors. "She is indeed," Yates replied, looking at her with such warmth that Sophia momentarily forgot they were in a room full of people. When Yates was called away to prepare for his acceptance speech, a woman in a sleek black dress approached Sophia. "You must be Sophia," she said, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Natalie, Yates's sister." "Oh, it's wonderful to meet you," Sophia said, genuinely pleased. Yates spoke often and fondly of his sister. Natalie smiled, assessing Sophia with friendly curiosity. "My brother hasn't brought a date to one of these things in years. You must be special." "I just make his coffee," Sophia replied modestly. "From what he's told me, you do a lot more than that." Natalie's expression turned more serious. "He seems happier than I've seen him in a long time. Whatever you're doing, please keep doing it." Before Sophia could respond, the lights dimmed and the awards presentation began. When Yates took the stage to accept his company's award, his presence was commanding yet humble. He spoke eloquently about innovation and the future of digital literacy, thanking his team for their dedication. At the end of his speech, he paused, then added, "And I'd like to thank someone special who reminded me recently that transparency is essential in all aspects of life. Sophia, thank you for your unwavering support and for making sure I never miss my morning coffee." The audience chuckled, but Sophia felt tears prick her eyes at the public acknowledgement. As applause filled the room, Yates's gaze found hers in the crowd, and the connection between them felt almost tangible. Later that night, as they slow danced among other couples, Yates held her close. "Was it terrible?" he murmured against her hair. "Not at all," she replied truthfully. "Your sister is lovely. She likes you," he said. "She texted me during my speech to tell me not to screw this up." Sophia laughed. "Smart woman." "Sophia," he said, his tone turning serious. "These past few months have been the happiest of my life. Before I met you, I was just going through the motions: work, sleep, repeat. You've brought color back into my world." Her heart swelled. "You've done the same for me." He took a deep breath. "I know it might seem fast, but when something feels this right, I don't want to waste time." He led her to a quieter corner of the ballroom. "I'm not proposing, not yet, but I want you to know that's where I see this heading. If that scares you, it doesn't," she interrupted softly. "I feel the same way." The relief and joy on his face made her heart skip. "Good," he whispered, pulling her close. "Because I'm completely in love with you, Sophia Walsh." "I love you too, Yates Bowman," she replied, the words feeling perfectly natural. As summer turned to fall, their lives became increasingly intertwined. Yates kept his morning ritual at Brew and Bean, often bringing Sophia coffee in bed on her days off. She introduced him to her parents during their visit from Ohio, and he charmed them completely. They spent Thanksgiving with his family in Connecticut, where Sophia discovered Yates had inherited his love of books from his father and his business acumen from his mother. In December, as they decorated the Christmas tree in his apartment, now their apartment, as she'd moved in the month before, Yates seemed unusually nervous. "Everything okay?" Sophia asked as she hung a hand-blown glass ornament they'd purchased during a weekend trip to Vermont. "Perfect," he replied, though his smile seemed forced. "Just thinking about work." She didn't press, though she suspected he wasn't being entirely truthful. Later that evening, he suggested a walk to see the holiday lights in the neighborhood despite the freezing temperatures. "We could just look from the window," Sophia suggested, gesturing to their view of the decorated street below. "Where's your sense of adventure?" he teased, already holding her coat. "The cold air will be invigorating." Bundled up against the December chill, they strolled hand in hand through the festive streets. Snow had fallen earlier in the day, giving the city a magical, hushed quality. As they reached a small park where a magnificent Christmas tree stood illuminated, Yates pulled her to a stop. "Do you remember our first date?" he asked, his breath visible in the cold air. "When we walked by the river, of course," she smiled. "You kissed me under the streetlight. That night I knew you were special," he continued. "I just had no idea how completely you would change my life." To her surprise, he lowered himself to one knee on the snowy ground, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Sophia's hand flew to her mouth as passers-by stopped to watch. "Sophia Walsh, 1 year ago you gave me the wrong coffee and the right perspective on what matters in life. You've shown me that success means nothing without someone to share it with." He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald-cut diamond ring. "Will you marry me?" Through tears of joy, Sophia nodded emphatically. "Yes," she managed. "Yes, absolutely yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, cheers erupted from onlookers. Yates stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her deeply as snowflakes began to fall around them. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "More than I ever thought possible." "I love you too," she replied, her heart so full it felt it might burst. "Even when you make me stand in the snow for a proposal," he laughed, lifting her off her feet in an exuberant hug. "I promise to keep you warm for the rest of our lives." They were married the following June in a garden ceremony attended by family, friends, and the entire staff of Brew and Bean. Sophia's dream of owning a bookstore cafe became reality when Yates surprised her with a wedding gift. A brownstone in Brooklyn with a ground-floor commercial space, perfect for the business she'd always imagined. Brew, Bean, and Books opened 6 months later, combining Sophia's coffee expertise with her love of literature. It quickly became a neighborhood favorite, known for its carefully curated selection and cozy atmosphere. Yates often worked from a corner table, claiming the ambient noise helped him think better than his silent corner office. 2 years into their marriage, they welcomed twins, a boy and a girl who inherited their father's blue eyes and their mother's determination. Yates proved to be as dedicated a father as he was a businessman, often wearing a baby carrier during video meetings when Sophia needed a break. On their 5th wedding anniversary, as they sat on the rooftop garden of their brownstone, watching the sunset while their children played nearby, Sophia turned to her husband. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't given me the wrong name that morning?" "If I'd never mixed up your coffee," Yates considered the question. "I like to think we would have found our way to each other eventually, but I'm grateful for that mix-up. Best mistake of my life." "Mine too," she agreed, leaning against his shoulder. "Who would have thought a coffee order would lead to all this?" "I knew what I wanted the moment I saw you," he admitted. "It just took me a while to place the right order." "And what was that?" He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "A lifetime with you." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over their little family, Sophia reflected on the beautiful serendipity that had brought them together. A simple mistake, a moment of kindness and a willingness to see beyond the surface, had led to the greatest love story she could have imagined, one that continued to unfold day by day, cup by cup, in the life they'd built together.